How's it going, everyone? I am the one and only 𝙀𝙓𝙋𝘼𝙉. Welcome back to a new video. And in today's video, as you can probably tell from what's playing in the background, I wanted to talk about synthesis for a minute. Um, in spirit of what I've been doing over the last couple of videos within my last few, I talked about how to fix incursion. I talked about how I would fix Abyss. So how would I fix, and in this case, re-implement synthesis into the game? Because it's been now 3 years, and the most that we've had with synthesis was they added the boss fights back in, which was very nice, very good. It put them back in the game. But what I miss is the actual league mechanic. And you can see right now playing in the background, you can see the league mechanic. It's about to show up right about now. Maybe they'll show the little map here in just a second. There it is. That little map where you're putting those pieces in and it's connecting bridges and building pathways and things to the actual like outer islands and the rewards and things. That's what I miss about synthesis. So how would I repair? How would I fix synthesis? How would I re-implement it and rebalance the problems with it in order to allow it to be put back into the game in some form of functional state? Because it was such a fun mechanic and I miss it dearly. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like if you enjoy the video. I'd really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's jump right in. So, two things. There were two major issues with synthesis that people really had during the league. For people who didn't play during synthesis, because it was back in March, or yeah, this trailer came out in February, but it released in March of 2019. It's over 3 years old now. What was wrong with it? Well, the two big things. The synthesizer was a thing where you could put two, or if I remember, three items. I think you could put up to three items into the synthesizer, and it would essentially combine the items, and they had to be synthesized items, dropped specifically from synthesis, and it would merge the implicits into one or a couple of like big implicits and stuff like that. And you could merge unique synthesized items to get multi-implicits. I think that was the way that it happened. And it was all randomized. But you could merge items. The problem with that was there were recipes, essentially. And so people would, in essence, have to take these items, use a third-party website or a third-party tool to track and figure out what they were going to get. And people don't like doing that. Like, right? Like, I mean, it stands to reason. If I want to play Path of Exile, I want to play Path of Exile. I don't want to play Path of Exile and then tab out for 30 minutes while I'm scrolling through. Here, I even have a tab pulled up for a second. Let me swap to it. This is an old table, if I recall. Yeah, updated 3.63 versions of the implicits. You can see here, I could scroll for, look at the scroll over here. Look at this. Just watch this for a second. Do you see all these implicits? All these implicits can appear on different item types, different base types, yada, yada, yada. You get the idea. There were hundreds upon hundreds of combinations that would form a different result. And there was no way for you to possibly figure out what would do it on its own, like on your own, without looking up one of these guides. So people just ended up ignoring it for the most part. Or they just randomly, YOLO'd threw things into the synthesizer and hoped that it worked, which obviously most of the time it did not. That was a major frustration, and one of the big things of the league was you can make these really good rares, you can make these really cool implicit combinations, but it just didn't hit. That did not land. So that is one of the big things that they could fix, and I'll talk about how in a second. And then the other one is a much simpler fix that was they needed to make the pieces rotatable. People said this in the league, during the league, multiple times, during interviews, during the Bay class, during all these streamer interviews with Chris Wilson, and everybody kept telling them, hey, you probably need to make these pieces rotatable so that if I have a piece that can fit a certain thing, I can just rotate it. And it wouldn't have, like, at the time, they doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down and said, no, we want you to have to find the pieces. And you did have limited storage space as well. You had like 20, I think, after they like expanded it. You got to a point where you could have like 10 or 20 pieces at a time. But you had to drop the pieces. And if you didn't get the pieces you wanted, you just couldn't reach these like outer islands, because you'd get this like large scale map and you'd have like an island out here and an island out here off in the distance. And you wanted to reach them, but you couldn't. You ran out of pieces. You maxed out the map because you could only have a certain number of pathways and stuff. It needed to be rotatable. So if they were to re-implement synthesis, number one, make those pieces rotatable. Make it where the pathways, you can literally build your own thing. Like we've seen a similar system in the last epic, where, they have a similar system to synthesis, and this is probably where they got the inspiration. But that's where it comes from, right? Make those pieces rotatable and make it where I get to build my own pathway. I'm not just dependent on finding those like 4-way paths like you saw on the right there. There was like a couple of them that had like the little like all 4 links. And then you could do whatever you wanted to, but those were so rare. And then number 2, how do you fix the synthesizer, right? Like that is the other big gripe that people had with the League. And I think they were afraid of the power creep. And this was before Harvest. So apparently they got over that fear of rare item power creep pretty quickly because they implemented Harvest at some point. And, I've made a video talking about my thoughts on Harvest. I think Harvest was the biggest mistake they've ever made, but go watch that video if you want to know what I think about Harvest. I think what they could do is simply just show the combinations, show the outcomes. If you don't want to, number 1, you should probably limit the number of outcomes, and 2, you should probably, at least to some degree, you should probably show what the outcomes are. Just have a little pop-up that say you're mixing percent fizz as fire and percent fizz taken as fire, which will give you percent fizz taken as chaos or something, and it tells you this is the outcome, so that you can just start playing around with items. You plug and play, you throw things into the different slots, see if they have different outcomes, throw in different items. That's how it should have been. It should have had a thing that said, hey, these are what you will receive beforehand, because the total gamble is very sad. It's like, in this instance, you needed to know a little bit of determinism. And I think that absolutely would have gone a very, very long way. But otherwise, you can see in the background, this was one of their first, soft time mechanics, is what I'll call it. There was no hard timer. There's no clock ticking. There's no meter counting down on you. But the room is closing in on you. The floor is disintegrating and slowly pushing in towards you. And you got to hurry to get through it. Make your way to those stabilizers. And it just felt good. And then making that map, looking at that map, felt so interesting and unique and different to anything that I had played in Path of Exile. And I really enjoyed it. But it also still felt good. It felt like I was playing Path of Exile in a new way. And I really think that if they would just re-implement it, give it some touch-ups, give it a little bit of love, and make those pieces rotatable, fairly common, and then just, fix the synthesizer a little bit, or just delete it entirely. Hell, I would be perfectly fine if they would just delete the synthesizer entirely, re-implement the bosses, re-implement synthesis as a fun end-game mechanic, and just have it be there with maps and stuff where you're getting them pretty frequently. You're getting the pieces. I think synthesis could be a fun heist level, almost alternative to endgame. Maybe not quite heist level, but you get my point. I think Synthesis was a fun league. I think it gets overlooked very frequently in the history of Path of Exile, and I don't want to see it get totally buried. So I'd love to see them re-implement Synthesis, and yeah, so I hope you enjoyed watching. If you're new here, again, leave a like and subscribe, and let me know down below, what would you do if they told you, hey, you're the guy, re-implement Synthesis? How would you do it? Let me know if you have any thoughts, suggestions down below in the comments, and if you do, I'll give it a heart. And I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, I hope you all enjoy, and I will see you in a new video tomorrow. Have a great day.